You're listening to the Death Rattle Crew, a Hearthstone podcast.
DRC, for those of you listening for the first time, welcome to the crew. I'm your host, Mike Tac2 Hearn, and this is the Death Rattle Crew, a Hearthstone podcast. This week, we'll talk about the meta and what we've been seeing in the competitive tournament scene. But remember, we'd still love to hear from you. You can find us on YouTube if you're not already here at Death Rattle Crew, on Twitter at Death Rattle Crew, and on our website at www.deathrattlecrew.com. You can also email us at mail@deathrattlecrew.com. And with that, on with the show. Welcome back to Meta Anatomy, your weekly one-stop shop for everything meta in Hearthstone. I'm joined again today by Matt Mushu Hill.
Good evening. Good morning, sir. That's right.
And Tom Just Soup Jessup.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. So, what has been going on? Matt, we'll start with you. What have you been playing? What have you noticed in the meta this week?
I had a terrible week. I played like 69 games for those of you playing at home, so the magic number. But for the first couple of days, I don't know, I was just stuck. When I started with, I was like, I've got my 500 wins as my warlock, so I was like, all right, we'll start with the next most cancerous class and we'll play Hunter. And I just win loss against like everything. I played against Zoo, I played against Mech Mage, I played against other face hunters, I played against Druids, I played against Paladins. It seems to be, I had a very sort of spread out week and I managed to finish one game down, but I still kind of feel quite sad with myself. 70 games and I moved up like 3 ranks. That's my week has been interesting and depressing.
So you've seen a lot of face hunters? Because I haven't seen very many. It's been Mech Mage.
I've seen it I've seen, what we got? I've seen, so out of 70 games, I've seen 12 hunters, and I think with the exception of some weird mech something or other hunter, they've all been face hunter, or what I would consider face hunter.
I've seen Mech Hunter a little bit. I don't know exactly how well it's doing, and I haven't even seen it online, but I've seen it.
It's not a thing. It's not a thing.
I don't think so either. That Mech Bearcat thing is pretty cool, but it's not like,
The one time they played it, I like. Is the Mech Bearcat? Is it a hunt? That's a hunter card, isn't it? It's not a druid card.
Wait, that is a druid card, isn't it?
Mech Bearcat?
No. Are you thinking of the Metal Tooth Leaper?
I think so. Yeah. Is the Mech Bearcat the druid card?
That's a druid card. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever. They're both cats.
Yeah.
Metal and.
No, I was just thinking about. No, I did have an experience with Mech Bearcat where he just like taunted it up, and with and I just like, I had Black Knight in my hand. And it was just like the most like good turn for me because it was just such a tempo push because he had nothing. That's all he did. It was like taunted up, and that was his his turn 6 or 7, and it's just like, well, I'm gonna win from here because I just steamroll you. But yeah, Mech Hunter, do not think is a thing.
No,
it's there's like obviously the sort of thing you can take away from it a little bit is the Clockwork Gnomes feeding into those last couple of people playing Undertaker, which is it's not that bad, but yeah. Have you seen Undertakers in your face hunters?
That's the next question. I've still been seeing, everyone was crying, finally Undertaker's dead. It's not dead. It's still around.
It's not
dead at all. Undertaker's dead.
It's pretty good still. It's just, it's what a 1-drop should be, honestly. Like, I'm sad.
It's less good.
I'm sad that I can't dominate people's faces with it anymore, but I know it's for the better of the game.
I don't know. I say it was a buff because now it takes a while before you can BGH it.
But it takes a while before you can judge. Oh, it takes the same amount of time. It takes more time to care about it, which sometimes I can see that in some instances that being a trap. But it's definitely moved away from that whole rock paper Undertaker thing where it's like if I get Undertaker in a start, then you're cooked, buddy. Game over.
Right.
It seems really fair now. It doesn't seem Undertaker doesn't seem unfair at all.
No,
which is it's good. It's like what was it a rare or a common? It was a common.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. It's just like it doesn't. It feels like a common card now.
Well, it was almost like what Tom was saying earlier. It's like maybe it should be a legendary card if it was the same.
Yeah, like that would make it really, really cool. Like we don't have any one-drop legendaries, and having legendary Undertaker, that would be really cool. It's something my brother-in-law and I were talking about. Because you can only run one of it,
right?
And the consistency of having that card would be, like it would be cut in half, obviously, and it wouldn't be running all the games. You could still obviously get it out in Axe, but I think making it a legendary it would just go to show how freaking broken that card was, and it would be really cool to just see, oh, this card was a common, and now it's a freaking legendary. We kind of screwed the pooch, but we're gonna fix it this way.
I am willing to put money on that they'll never do that with any card from any rarity.
I doubt it.
I draw back to when the game was dominated by the old Miracle Rogue, and one of the discussions about Auctioneer was that you could make it a legendary and make it more fair because they could only have one of them, and thus decrease the likelihood of getting it. And they didn't do that; they just sort of waited. I think that was a pretty well-handled situation. And they increased the mana cost, didn't they? And
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what.
It became 6.
And which now I'm actually seeing Miracle Rogue I want to say it's making a comeback, but I'm actually seeing it being played.
I am
with
too,
the Gadget Sand.
But is it Miracle Rogue or is it one of the?
It's a variation of the Oil Rogue. Basically, it's the Oil Rogue just throwing those in. What are they taking out? I'm trying to remember. I watched a couple streamers play it.
Yeah, me too. I can't remember who I was watching, but one guy in specific was playing. Basically, it was like Oil Rogue and old Miracle Rogue mixed.
Yeah.
It was like really, really, really cool. But I can't remember what his name was and all the cards he was playing. But I tried to get it put together. I just don't have all the cards.
Okay. So one of the things that came out this week was Magic Amy's tier list of who is she plays for Tempo Storm and ranked a bunch of the GVG lists, and in her tier 1 list was the Oil Rogue, and that's sort of like the list that's posted on Tempo Storm doesn't actually have an Auctioneer in it, but it's sort of it looks kind of like the same sort of miracle feel. I guess it's sort of about just like spiking and just wrecking them.
Yeah,
but less
the
about,
whole burst thing, South Sea backhand, and then
less about performing a miracle.
It's
the Gadget Sand Miracle.
I like it,
which is interesting.
I'd like to make it and play it because it looks so fun. But unfortunately I don't have the preps. I don't have Blade Flurry. Actually, I don't have Blood Mage Thalnos. And Sabotage. I disenchanted Sabotage. Magic Amy has it in her tier list. In the deck list, in the tier list, a 1/0 Sabotage. I haven't seen it played much, so I disenchanted it because I was like, I haven't seen it played ever. Probably. It
looks like a pretty heavy meta call. Because if you're playing by heavy meta core, I guess that's a little bit silly because it's like in a meta dominated by paladins, hunters, and with some warriors and shit. Yeah. I think most of the time you're gonna have a target with sabotage.
Yeah.
And it looks like such a swing in tempo because if you bink the weapon and their creature, then for 4, that's the big thing. For 4. It's like,
but it's random. That's the thing. Destroy a random enemy minion.
Well, it's random like the same way Deadly Shot is random. I mean, people you try and use it in an optimal situation where you like only have one target. And it's like, haha, I shot on you for 4 mana.
I mean, it destroys warriors. That's a definitely anti-warrior card. Definitely. And I see most people run one of them, not necessarily 2. I guess it depends.
Oh yeah, no, it's just one. So.
Yeah, it's linked as one, which is I've been a fan of running like one of things more recently. One of the things I was finding a problem with for this week's deck of the week, which is Ramp Druid. For those of you playing at home, sorry to steal that away from you, Mr. Tack 2.
No.
Was yeah, I was having a bit of trouble with the face hunters, and like I you know that point of equalization when you've staved off all their threats and they can't just hit you in the face anymore, and you equalize at about 8 health, and then you can drop something like something to heal you. I was finding that like I had been using my ancient as soon as I need to use my ancient of law for healing in some situations, I feel like I've like pretty much already lost because I lose sort of +2 cards. So I dropped I was running 2 Azure Drakes and I picked up an antique heal bot. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be. Like testing, I don't think Druid actually needs the heals. I think if I really wanted to put another heal in, I would probably drop a Shredder or something and maybe put in like a healing touch or something. I think that'd be a better use of my card limit, because I think 2 Azures is better. But yeah, that was sort of like I was running 1 antique heal bot, and I've got like 1 big game hunter and 1 mind control tech, which it's really nice. It's mind control tech. With Dr. Boom being as massive as he is, plus like they turn 7, they drop 3 creatures with Dr. Boom, and most of the time they have at least one other thing up, and it's just like I have a 25% chance to steal Boom and still win this game.
Yeah. Well, and that's something I've been noticing as well, watching streams. A lot of people, they're running less minions over 7 attack. I was watching Trump or Masan. I can't remember. Maybe it was Masan.
They're both the same. Is that what it's saying?
Yeah. Well, that's what Twitch chat always likes to say. But I really can't remember because I watched one and then I watched the other one right immediately, like back to back.
Same team. Same.
Yeah, exactly.
Similar ethnicity, therefore the same person.
Right.
Death Rattle crew confirmed a racist.
Oh, great. Here we go.
Wait, sorry. Continue.
But I'm going to say it was Masan. I'm pretty sure it was Masan. He was running a Control Warrior, but he didn't actually have. Wasn't running Alexstrasza. I know, like, wow. And he wasn't running Dr. Boom. He was running Sneed's Old Shredder. He was running something else. Kel'Thuzad.
What?
It was, and he was doing fine, but I think it was just the same thing. Everyone's running big game hunters, so it's kind of all right. Fine, I'll play around it I'm still going to get value. And I guess the idea was, all right, if you're running Sneeze and if you're running Kel'Thuzad, you don't necessarily need Alexstrasza. I don't know how I felt about the Kel'Thuzad. I feel like that card, which for those at home, that's a 6 8 for 8.
Like,
It's. I don't know. I don't know how I felt about it. The Steez Old Shredder I think was fine, but
about that,
like it's good in Druid. I've noticed it's so good in Druid because Druid just puts up a bunch of taunts and says, "All right, can you get through it? No." That sucks for you. Yes. Well, they're coming back next turn.
Right.
Like, so either way, you lose. If a Kel'Thuzad stays on board and you can't kill them in the face within the next like 2-3 turns, it's probably game.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It's such a skiller. So with the Kel'Thuzad, you're saying it's more of an odd fit in Warrior. I think what would you dupe in a Warrior? Like, what would you want to bring back? I think it's what sort of. I guess if you. I think I can envision a circumstance where you'd be like continuously bringing back Grummy Hellscream, but other than that,
and he was still running that.
I guess it sort of adds that synergy with Sneed. So if he has both of those out, then it's just sort of an infinite loop of that a fountain of legendaries of which he could still get Alexstrasza popping out.
Right. So I mean, he was still running Grummash Hellscream. The Kel'Thuzad I didn't get. It wasn't running Ragnaros again over 7 attacks, so that's a target.
I've seen like 1 Ragnaros this week, and my general opinion of where Rag is at, it's like it almost feels like it's too much of an investment. Like, sure, you can.
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel like it's right at the moment. It doesn't feel like he does enough.
I feel like you have to play cards that bait out the BGHs and the polymorphs before you play Rag. You like if you get it early, it's a dead card until the end of the game if you live that long.
You're 100% right. I think that's got a lot to do with it. Yeah, because it's such an investment in a BGH heavy meta where if you play a Rag it's BGH'd, it's sort of like, well, fuck me, game over. Because and
it's a tempo swing too, because you spend even at 8, 9, 10 mana, depending how much you have. That's the only card you're playing. And if someone BGHs, they still have mana to play with after they kill your.
It's like in a druid, they might have enough cards to play their own Ragnaros. Or what would be like hella really sick is if because you have enough mana to go. One thing I haven't seen in a long time is a faceless manipulator. But faceless your Rag, then shoot it, and then. I think you just nearly open concede at that point. Depending.
Well, and I won't give too much away because this is more has to do with deck of the week. But my ramp druid, I actually have a faceless and a Rag.
Yeah.
So I was playing against a priest, and he mind controlled my Rag. I played it. He mind controlled it. My next turn, I faceless manipulated it, and then BGH'd the Rag he stole.
So good.
It worked out, but that's
Rags.
that's the only matchup it works against. Like if Rag can stay out on the board a turn, then it's great because I can faceless manipulate it. But BGH just everyone's running it. It's so hard to play around.
Yes.
It's everybody's getting more access to legendaries. I feel right now. Because people have been playing longer and they're getting more gold and getting more dust and stuff, and people are like, "Oh, I got to build, Sylvanas or what are the lower ones? Like I guess Sneeds." And then people will see decks like Pally and Control Warrior, where they're running all the huge legendaries like Dr. Boom and I don't think Pally runs Alexstrasza, but Control Warrior definitely does a lot.
Yeah.
And so BGH is definitely going to see more prevalence just because a lot of people are getting all the cards and such.
Which I think we're in a weird place too, because I'd like to see more cards like Trogzor, the Earthinator, played.
Yeah,
but he's
awesome.
That was one of the cards. There's a couple cards that when GVJ came out, I was looking like that card's pretty neat. I don't think it works right now. People are still playing a lot of removal spells, obviously, and I don't think that'll ever change. But the meta's very minion heavy still, with Mech Mage, with Face Hunter, with Paladin.
Yeah, because you gotta wait until you get more cards in the game. To see more, like whether it is like an actual burn deck, if we ever see one, like just 5 damage to the face and 6 damage to the face and 3 damage to the face and stuff like that. We kind of have that with Face Hunter, kind of, but that's still minion heavy. And then pure control decks, like I am on this whole shtick all the time that there's no pure control deck in this game, and it kind of makes me sad because I played the hell out of blue-white control in Magic for a long, long time, and the closest thing we have to a pure control deck is Control Warrior, or kind of like a
Freeze Mage.
Freeze Mage, Freeze Mage is one, and there's a Demon Control Warlock going around too. But they all run a bunch of creatures. Like Control Warrior runs a bunch of creatures, and they're for getting the warrior a bunch of armor. Yeah. And in the case of Acolyte of Pain, they get you a bunch of cards. Yeah. And then instead of running so in Magic, you would run, in a normal control deck, you would run about 25, 27 lands, and then a bunch of cards that either kill people's creatures or counter people's spells, like a bunch of those cards. Really efficient removal, draw spells, and a couple win conditions. Like, I ran 2 Elspeth and 1 Aetherling, I think it was, in my blue-white control list. And then, I go over to Hearthstone and see Control Warrior is running, 6, sometimes even 8 legendaries as their win conditions. Ramash is really good. Baron Geddon is a control-y, more end game kind of thing. Sylvanas can actually be a really good win condition sometimes. Rag is definitely one. Alexstrasza is definitely one. Dr. Boom. So
Yeah.
I just like when you just riddling off all these legendary names. We were talking before about adding people and abusing them after a game, and I've been in the heyday when Control Warrior was like really big. I was playing a bunch of it, and it was just sort of like you get added. And people abuse you for having like the legendary. So it's just like, stop talking to me, peasant.
You only won because you have all the cards. Well, that's what happens. Welcome to a card game.
Well, it was welcome to a card game, and it was one of the other guys from Theory Crafting was complaining about it earlier this week. He's like, I was playing at rank 20 and someone had like 6 legendaries in their deck, and I lost, and I was just like, he was complaining about the matchmaking system. I was like, those two things are different.
That sounds like my brother. Was that my brother? I think that was my brother.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. Well, I mean,
you just go smack your brother for me. Just be like,
I probably will.
I'm sick of this crap.
I don't disagree with him.
I think
his
rank 20 shouldn't play legendaries.
His thing was like, I swear to God, they put me up against all my counters, whatever deck I play, and I was like, you know they don't do that, right? And he's like, no, I'm pretty sure they do. And so I was playing this week. At the start of the season, and I was like, what was I playing? I was playing mid-range hunter. Because it would just started playing mid-range hunter, and I got put up against like all the pallies and all the hand locks, and I was like, well, son of a bitch. So I went to like my really shitty mech mage that I had built, that I just recently kind of fixed a little bit, and I was playing up against more pally, which isn't like a terrible matchup for the mech mage, I don't think, but a lot of druid and a lot of control warrior and a little bit more hand lock, and I would switch to the face hunter to counter the pally that I was getting, and to sometimes counter the hand lock that I could maybe kill sometimes. And then I would be getting shit like lots of control warrior and lots of druids. And I was like, Isaac, shit, you're right. This is bullcrap. I'm done.
Isaac, it's a conspiracy.
It is.
I'm just
get the capper.
At me, I swear to God.
I'm just glad that we have more decks in the meta than we did before GVG. You know, it was getting a little stale. So I don't mind seeing the same decks if it's the same 6 or 7 decks, you know, as opposed to the same 2 or 3.
I mean, I'm getting kind of pissed off with Paladin. Like, it's not a cancerous deck as like Face Hunter is, but it's just really obnoxious to see. Like, yay, I'm playing another Paladin. Like, and I'm playing the Mech Shaman deck now, which I don't think is like super great. It's definitely not. I've had fun with it, but for the most part, like just playing against Pally is really annoying. Like I'm playing Mech Shaman, oh hey, here's another Pally, or oh hey, here's another Druid, which is also really prevalent.
Yeah, there's a lot of Druids.
Well, Druid, I feel like because the meta is just like in a constant state of shit at the moment. Like there's so many like quote unquote viable decks. I mean, Mage has 3 variants that are running at the moment. You've got your Mech, you've got your Fatigue, and you've got the Freeze Mage, and I think that's pretty much unprecedented.
Yeah,
but
Mage wasn't run like a lot last season. Like right at the end of the season, it was a little bit, but Fatigue, Freeze, and Mech were all around the same clump in the tier list. And I kind of agreed with that. But now Mech Mage is number 1 according to Magic Gaming, and I don't claim to be as good or better than Magic Gaming, but I don't think Mech Mage is that good. Like I know it's good, but it's not tier 1. I mean, it's tier 1, not number 1.
I'm going against the it's like I'm going to contest this Tempo Storm player. She doesn't know what she's on about.
I don't know.
I definitely understand where you're coming from, because when we were doing it last week and we were playing Mech Mage, I came into the show saying, screw this deck. This deck is crap. I can't win with it. And then like when I was driving home from work before the show, it was like on Twitter, Firebat makes rank 2 legend with Mech Mage. I was like, holy shit. I just assumed they were just on a better level. And I guess this is based on the top end of the thing. Right. And you got to remember, for the most part, like even if we get to rank 5 and shit, and even if we make legend, we're probably still not going to see this top end of like top 100 players with decks.
Probably not.
So I think this is like golden competitive sort of thing.
Yeah. The list I had been running, I don't know about you, the list I had been running was like super tribal based. Like I was just very basic, you know. I looked some stuff up online. I didn't go heavy digging, but I noticed a lot. Like everybody who beat me as Mech Mage was running the Mad Scientist mirror entity thing going on. Like that's. I didn't when making this deck, I didn't even think to put in mirror entity or any secrets for that matter. I saw people putting in counterspell as well, like a one of. And they cut away from the piloted shredder. They cut away from the Tinkertown Technician, and they put in water elemental, which, like, you think about that, like that's an okay card, right? But in Mech Mage, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
But it does so well.
I think
in the list that Magic Amy has put up online, she has Blingtron. I also
Blingtron, motherfucker.
Well, I've seen it once. I've seen it played once, and I lost against it because the mage got frickin' True Silver Champion, which was stupid. But I'm not gonna discredit Blingtron, but I feel like it's way too much RNG for one card.
Well, I've seen the. Well, I like you were saying, you know, you see people trade out the Tinkertown Technician, which I think is crazy, unless the meta's full of weapon-based minions or champions. Then Water Elementer and Snow Chugger, having all four of those is amazing. But what I've been seeing is if people are running Blingtron and they're not a weapons class, they're running Harrison Jones as well. Yeah. So, you know, they play that, they get a weapon, and then they get card draw on top of
fantastic.
it. I see people run it all the time. It's a great combo. Now, here's the thing. It's not as consistent unless you're playing the fatigue game. If you're going later in the game, the chances of you having that combo is greater and greater. But even then, if you're playing a heavy weapon-based champion meta, having Harrison Jones, even without Blingtron, is still a good card to have.
So So Magic Amy still runs the Tinkertown Technicians. I've seen people dropping down to one Tinkertown Technician, which I think is ridiculous, especially if you're running somebody like Archmage Antonidas, which you kind of have to run him in this deck. I think the main reason I'm losing so much, I feel, is because I don't have Archmage Antonidas because he is the end all be all to closing out your games.
He's the finisher.
Yeah, You play Archmage Antonidas, you throw out your spare parts, and you start winning games. Like that's
so. What were you running instead of?
Or you control them out if you absolutely have to. So
what were you playing instead of Antonidas?
Dr. Boom, which is also run in this list. But the list that I was playing like a while back at the end of the season, it was similar to Brian Kibler's list. I didn't have the Fell Reavers.
Come on.
I didn't have Archmage Antonidas, and he didn't run Archmage Antonidas, he ran Dr. Boom and he ran Lotheb. And I was like, okay, well, I just got Dr. Boom, thank you, RNGesus. And I have Lotheb, so I'll run this deck. And the only card that it also ran that I liked a lot and didn't make any sense was like Defender of Argus. Because it was a small anthem effect for the creatures you have on board, and it gave taunt, so it slowed down the aggro decks that we're playing. So like I was playing up against a lot of Face Hunter at the end of the season because everybody loved Face Hunter, and that probably was the result of me winning a lot of games. But now that I look at this Mech Mage deck, it's the one that Magic Amy has running one Anoyotron. That's a problem because Anoyotron is the best card in the game. And the rest of the cards, like, they make sense up until you get to, like, Water Elemental and Blingtron. And, like, I can understand Black Knight. Black Knight is being played a lot now. Lotheb, also understandable. Archmage Antonidas and Dr. Boom, but that's a lot of legendaries. And the Mad Scientist and Mirror Entity also really doesn't make sense, but, like, it does so much work. It's so ridiculous.
I guess the big thing with Blingtron, at least, is coming back to this whole meta of having weapons. Is Blingtron gives them another weapon. So if you're facing like a Gorehow or a Doomhammer, like jokes, it's not going to it's not going to be Doomhammer, but because there are no sevens in this meta. Anyway, so you're going to most likely going to destroy a weapon, and I think on the Reddit is telling me the average value of the weapon you get from Blingtron is 4.36. So you're looking at sort of what that's like a death spite or something.
Okay.
Wait, like mana cost wise?
Yeah. So I assume the mana cost would translate into the stats.
I wasn't sure if you're like the value as in like, you know, like from 1 out of 10 you're gonna get an almost okay card.
Yeah. So it particularly with Blingtron becomes quite versatile, particularly in something like where you can follow through and destroy the weapon. So if you're ever running Harrison Jones with it. But even by itself, just using Blingtron to chance it and try and destroy their weapon.
Yeah.
But I've been in a couple of situations where I've been on like the receiving end of quite a good weapon, and it ruins their life. But
right.
In theory, on average,
it's a good tech card. You know, very meta dependent though.
It's a very fun card.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot of fun.
So you said you know nobody's gonna play Blingtron against somebody running Doomhammer. Well, that happened to me.
Well, no. I was making fun of the fact there are no shamans.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
That's why you missed it, Tom.
There are shamans, and I'm here, and that happened.
The
and,
one
I shed
person
a tear. Like I played the Doomhammer,
I'm
like
the
took one of his things and slung to the face, and I was like, I'm in a pretty good position, and Blingtron, and I was like, what in the actual heck is going on?
On a side note, how much fun is Blingtron in WoW? Just
he's cool. I love him to death.
Like where you get like, so in WoW, I don't know if you know, if you get like 2 or 3 of them, they just kill each other. They sit there and punch each other, and you get like, particularly waiting for raids and stuff. You get Blingtron parties where they start hitting one another. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. It's like robot genocide. It's ridiculous.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no. Back to the game. Robot genocide aside.
Oh, that was worth it. So we went over Oil Rogue a bit. We went over Mech Mage. Paladin is obviously a thing. I don't think that's too much to like. I think if you're playing Hearthstone right now in ranked, you've seen Paladin.
Yeah,
I think it's not much to talk about really. Other than the fact that like you know Quartermaster or Muster for Battle like
12s, man.
Fucking. Forget. I call it the butt mustard combo, and it pisses me off all the time that I see it, and I hate it to death.
Wait, you haven't heard the mustard quarter pounder?
Mustard quarter pounder?
Yeah, muster for battle and play the quartermaster.
That's
the mustard.
No, I haven't.
Quarter pounder with mustard, man.
It is a pounder. I'll tell you that. It hurts me so much.
Quarter pounder with mustard.
Best play ever. Oh god, I was so happy because I was playing Face Hunter, and I hate Face Hunter. And it's super cancerous, but I had to play it because it was the only threat against Pally. And so I played it. Turn 1, this guy does something stupid. I can't remember. It's probably like Shielded Mini Bot, and I played a card. I think it was like Leper Gnome. I don't remember, but somehow we got his. That's not what happened, but somehow we got his Shielded Mini Bot off the table. Like it was just really freaking annoying. I hate Shielded Mini Bot. Got it off the table, and then I got to play my Knife Juggler. And then next turn, he plays Muster for Battle. And I'm like, God dang it. And then I top deck Unleash the Hounds. And I'm like,
oh, nice.
Oh,
Unleash the skill.
Oh, yeah. Shit's about to go down. So I play Unleash the Hounds. Hound comes up. Roar. Knife to the thing. Roar. Knife to the other thing. Roar. Knife to the other thing. I'm like, all right, let's go. 6 damage to the face because fuck you. And then obviously obligatory, justice demands retribution, and I was like, "Yeah, damn right, son. I hope that hurt."
That was he lost because he did the wrong emote. The right emote is well met.
Yeah,
that's the only emote you ever need. Or thank you. Yes,
thank you.
I just like at some point in my Hearthstone playing games, I just became obsessed with watching people like kill themselves. Yeah. It's just like you know, show them that you have lethal on board. It's like, thank you. Until they like surrender and just you see them explode. It's like I made you do that. I made you.
People don't
it was me.
Satisfaction of winning anymore. Which I mean I guess is
I've been in the habit of like squelching people because it's like
me too.
it's so tilting.
Yeah, it is.
Sometimes
It
it's
is.
just like, especially if it's like a clutch match. It's just like in any game, like particularly in like League of Legends, when you get to the end of the game and you lose, and the enemy team says "GG easy," and it's like one of the most insulting things you can hear. It's like it was not easy, and it's the same sort of thing.
A fight, damn it!
Yeah, it's like it's the same thing. We're just saying thank you. Thank you. But yeah, so I've been in the business of squelching people.
It is really. It feels so good though when I played up against a mage and he had Archmage Antonitis on board or something, and like he played a stupid spare part, and then like was like well played, and came to my turn and I had kill, and I was like, oh this is so good, and he just kept spamming well played, and like every chance that came up, well played, and so I was sitting here, I was like trying to figure out if I had lethal, and I figured out I had lethal, and he well played again, and I was like, sorry that happened, and then killed him, and he was like right at the end, like my magic shall burn you or whatever, I can't remember what it was, but oh god, the feels so good.
Just like finishing, and then it goes everywhere.
Them trolls.
It's these vendettas you get. Could you imagine like how bad this game would be if there was a chat window?
Oh god.
I'm polite now. Never.
Like whoever like decided that at Blizzard, fuck me, they've single-handedly saved the game.
Oh yes.
The amount of toxicity I would project at people, particularly like in the early, like I was sometimes I got so angry earlier in Hearthstone. It was just like, it's just something you just have to like. It comes back to you just got to play more games. But yeah, oh my god, if I could tell people how I feel during a game with more than thank you, hello,
right,
well met. It's just
I just say thank you now. Like that's it. Like when somebody does something that I really I hated it. I'm just like, thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, asshole. You're really nice to me. I appreciate
fuck
it.
you. Fuck you. Fuck you. I hate you. And then there's a hole in
my
the screen.
computer out the window.
Yeah, it's just game.
Skip the middle, man. I'm not even gonna uninstall like computer out the window.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Not having a chat window was a great design.
But back to the deck of the week of Ramp Druid. Mine is suitably titled Ramp City. So you guys were running Rag, weren't you?
No, hell no, I don't have Rag.
You don't have. You are such a peasant. It's ridiculous. I kid.
Get on my plebeian level, son.
Wait, we'll wait to talk about Ramp Druid.
Yeah.
All right, we'll wait.
But
yeah, before
we just stray from it, I do want to say I've been playing up against a lot of Ramp Druid, and it's super important for the meta. If you want to do something, I haven't found a solid like one card that just completely helps my entire situation against Ramp Druid. But I have been playing Mech Shaman, and if you're playing up against a lot of Druids, I don't recommend playing Mech Shaman. It's super fun. It's pretty damn good. But
do not recommend this deck.
Druid, like I knew this before looking at the tier list that Ramp Druid was shitting on Mech Shaman. Like and I won maybe. Let's see, I played Druid. I played one Fatigue Druid, I remember, and that I lost because. But
you fell asleep and then woke up and all your cards are gone and you hate me.
I played like 12 Ramp Druids and
Jesus.
Yeah. And out of all of those, I think I maybe won 4 of the games.
Holy crap. Yeah, it's Druids. I mean, everybody knows this. Druid is like the neutral class. Druid has a good chance against any deck. Or
they do.
Not so much a good chance, just not a bad. They're not like a dog in terms of.
They have options, I guess. It's not all like Face Hunter's all in. If a wall is up, if you're playing Face Hunter and your opponent puts up a wall, you're kind of screwed. You don't have a lot of options.
It's not a lot of room for movement. Whereas Druid, flexible.
Yeah. Well, but before we'll wait to talk about Druid. one thing I did want to talk about that I've been thinking about, and we kind of brought it up earlier, was Gadget Zan Auctioneer.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and it's a 4-4 for 6. It used to be a 4-4 for 5, correct? Am I correct?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I don't want to say for sure, but I think that is.
I don't want to be quoted, but I'm pretty sure this is what happened.
I'm pretty sure
because
it was a 5.
because they nerfed it, and I don't exactly remember
Well,
what happened. But
and-
continue,
It was
sorry.
the same time as Leroy.
Yeah, and they nerfed it because it's text
Key piece
reads
of Miracle
whenever you cast a spell, draw a card. So Miracle Rogue was running a lot of these, and I saw some other decks running. I actually had a Secret Hunter that I was running this in, and I don't think it was super competitive, but it was a lot of fun.
Secret Hunter. That sounds really fun.
It was pretty fun. I don't know if it probably doesn't work anymore, but I haven't tried
Not with
it.
the Kazan Mystic lying around, but no,
right.
I think it
So
would
good.
probably do better now than it ever did because Flare's not a thing anymore
Yeah, right.
because
So-
of that.
Well, and so here we go. The Gadgets and Auctioneer, a lot of problems that people had with it was very hard to kill, especially with Rogue, because they had cards like Conceal. With GVG, we have a lot more cards that actually do 4 damage, and usually it's random. Like, was it Flame Cannon for the Mage? Or what was the Bomb Lobber does 4 damage random. So,
Yeah.
What? Actually, like that's been played like a
oh
lot.
yeah, no, and it's
Yeah, it was a control warrior
Yep,
sort of card.
that's what I ran.
Definitely.
yeah.
Because it was a good temper. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so I
sorry.
mean, we have all these answers to this card, so I know a lot of the community, and I've been thinking the same things. I kind of want the control or the Miracle Rogue to come back. Not like just, I know. Hear me out. I just want more options. I want there to be more cards. Now, before you saying yes, I know that there's spare parts, so I'm sure that was probably the bigger reason that they nerfed it. You know, we have answers to it, but those answers aren't anything when you can get a bajillion one cost.
That would have been
free cards.
Fantastic time to quit Hearthstone.
Oh
if
yeah,
that was,
absolutely.
If that was a thing.
So maybe the option is you don't make, well, spare parts don't make them spells, which that doesn't work. But I guess what I'm really trying to say is I'm kind of bummed that it's not a thing anymore, because now we have answers to that problem. You know, it's almost like you didn't need to nerf it except for spare parts. And I'm hoping that they don't, like, you know, Undertaker needed to be nerfed. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
But I'm hoping that there's like Dr. Boom. I'm still seeing a lot of it, but I'm not seeing as much of it because people are playing Big Game Hunter.
I think like I don't think personally I don't think people playing more Big Game Hunters is a reason to take out Dr. Boom.
I don't
I
think
think
it is either,
it's
but I do
such
think
a-
there's a paranoia going around. Like, I haven't seen it as much as I used to because of the increase in BGH, but I don't think that's that's a good reason to take it out of your deck.
Well,
I think it's still a phenomenal
You're
card.
you're still getting value from the 1/1 bots.
Yeah.
Do you think? Well, here's another question then. Do you think it needs a nerf?
I think
Dr.
so.
Boom.
Dr. Balance?
I think maybe, I don't know. It hasn't made an impact in the meta. Well, actually I can't say that. I was gonna say it hasn't made as big an impact in the meta as like Undertaker did, technically. But I still think I don't know. I don't think it really needs a nerf. Like, it shouldn't be number one priority like Undertaker was. Like, Undertaker was nuts. But
yeah, it's a little bit different. I think.
yeah,
As
I think
was
it's still
just-
really good. And if
By turn 7, you have answers to it, whereas opposed to
Yeah,
the Undertaker
right.
turn 1, you probably don't
Undertaker
have an
can
answer.
get out of hand, and that's the problem with
Yeah.
it. And Dr. Boom is a legendary, and it's hard to get. And so when you get it and play it, it's, if you have the answer to it, which there are a good decent amount of answers to it, it's gonna eventually probably maybe take over games. But it's not like an instant, I played Dr. Boom, I'm gonna take over a game. And,
I win.
and with Undertaker, that's almost what it was. Like, I played Undertaker, you don't have an answer for it within the next 2 turns, I kind of win. I think if they did anything to Dr. Boom, I would probably just like lower the toughness or make it an 8-drop. Like, making it an 8-drop really wouldn't bother it that much. Like, for the decks that do play it, And there are a lot of decks that do play it. For the decks that do play it, like they can still, you can Doctor Boom Hero Power, you can Doctor Boom play a 2-drop, 1-drop, whatever. And so you still have that flexibility. But I think it puts it a little bit out of reach of some of the more weird decks. Like the crazy thing about Undertaker was that it was being played in a lot of just weird decks. Like Echo Mage was playing it. Who else? Like it seems like Undertaker should have been like that aggro card, and it was being played in just almost all the decks.
Well,
besides like Control Warrior and Paladin decks.
Well, and I think part of it is everyone was saying, "Oh, it's an amazing card turn 1, 2, or 3, but it's a garbage card turn 9." And I don't. I mean, any 1-drop is garbage turn 9, but out of all the 1-drops you can get, it's the best 1-drop you could get turn 9.
I would say probably.
Come on, because I mean, you can drop it and then buff it. I mean, think about it. If you play turn 8, you can play one of those into Dr. Boom, and you buff it twice.
Honestly, I don't think it's. I would probably rather have a Clockwork Gnome, if I got to say that, because depending on what deck I'm playing, obviously,
that's true. Yeah.
I love Clockwork Gnome, and recently, like ever since I started playing, I think Leopard Gnome was one of my favorite cards, just because I loved it. Like I feel icky, and then like it's gonna be 2 damage regardless, unless they Earthshock it, and then if they Earthshock it, then whatever, fine. But I think Clockwork Gnome is probably better, like especially in the meta. It's probably better than Leopard Gnome now, because the spare parts are just so useful and can synergize with much more things.
And they can win you games.
Base Hunter-esque deck, it's probably better to run both of them.
I wouldn't say both of them are definitely good. The balance I had in my Face Hunter was 2 Clockwork Gnomes and 1 Leopard Gnome, but I definitely think you are right. The spare part is more useful than the 2 damage a lot of the time.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it because of the RNG, but I think it's pretty damn good. So we talked a lot about. So we went over pretty much everything in Tier 1 except for Demon Control Warlock, which I saw once. I didn't even know it was a thing until I saw it, and I was like, "What the heck?"
They're elusive.
I beat it. Thankfully.
What are you seeing in it? Because I mean, I'm seeing things like Mistress of Pain and
I don't know why it's Tier 1.
Mistress of
I haven't played
Pain.
against it much though. So when I first started playing up against it, I was like, "Is this handlock?" Like it just looks like a
it looks like a
handlock in my opinion, which it probably isn't. It might be better. I just haven't played up against it or played it enough to say it looks pretty good. I don't know exactly why you would play this over handlock. It's got some really weird stuff like abusive sergeant, power overwhelming, zombie chow, haunted creeper, and then you move up the list, and then you got things like Void Caller and Shadow Flame, and then Jiraxis and Mal'Ganis. I don't know how I feel about this deck.
I played something like it, and my like when GVG first came out, and I played things like Demon Heart and stuff like that to buff the Mistress of Pain. And I wanted something to play Mal'Ganis in, just because that card's so freaking cool.
Oh yeah, it's so cool.
I guess I played mine closer because I feel like what you're talking about is kind of the mid-rangey build. Mine was closer to kind of it was handlock, but with demons. It worked in a very control-heavy meta, but in the aggro meta that was at that time, it was garbage, in my opinion, just because you didn't have the taunts. It was kind of, you were taking out the taunts to put in the demons, and that, I mean, I was even running floating watchers, and those are great in control metas, but so
I like that card a lot, actually. That card's really cool.
It's fun. I don't have any problems with floating watcher. I feel like you have to play it on turn 7 though.
If you don't if you I feel like you kind of you don't have to sink a lot into that, but it's obviously not as good if you don't have the preparation for it. Like if you don't play it with hero power on the turn, it's kind of gonna be a like dead in the water a little bit.
Oh yeah. So yeah, with the demon lock, I think it's the difference between this and Handlock is it's much less. It looks like it's much less reliant on getting to like that critical zone of 10 HP and hoarding a bunch of cards. It looks like it's a much more,
which is probably better for it.
Even. It's a lot more even spread kind of war, despite the curve not being, you know, massive. Like there's a huge spike. It's sort of 2 and 4, but it seems like it's more. There's more play in it. It's not like tap until I have 10 life and 16,000 cards in my hand.
Right.
But play the game as it progresses, because you've got things like this list has 2 implosions in it. So that's a turn 4. There's no Twilight Drakes. There's obviously no Giants.
I want to figure out what the Abusive Sergeant is for. I'm assuming it's for the Shadow Flame. But
it looks, it could be.
I've seen
it looks
streamers
versatility.
They use it on imps that you get from Implosion, or they'll buff something and then Shadow Flame.
That'll do it.
It looks like it just gives you a shit ton of versatility, because you can throw this anyway.
This looks. I mean, like it. If you look at this for like not knowing any context about it, you look at this deck and it's like, did you just like slam Zoolock and Handlock together? Like, but I think it's pretty cool. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't played up against it enough to know where it's going to go in the meta, but I don't think it's something to write off. I think it's something to look into, especially if people are playing Handlock and getting bored with Handlock and they still want to be playing a Warlock type deck. This is probably a really, really good deck, and looking at the cards, it looks pretty suited towards the meta.
It
probably.
The woman of the hour, Miss Magic Amy, has put it in tier 1 of her tier list, so it is obviously quite good. Yeah. In at least her eyes, and I'm willing to put my faith in Magic Amy. I don't know about you.
Faith in the light.
I haven't played this at all, so I don't know. I'll give it a try. I definitely want to give it a try and see how it does.
We looked at pretty much all one.
You can't peasant this deck up. It's got a Noni 300 dust cost for this list.
Yeah.
But that's with a rag, so I guess you can sort of not rag. It's
got both class legendaries, which is something you don't see a lot of. Like, not a lot of. I don't know if anybody besides Warlock and I guess Shaman have 2 good class legendaries. Like really, really good. Like Handlock or Warlock's class legendaries are both really, really good.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
Shamans are pretty damn good. I think Neptulon is nuts. I think that it's so good. And Alakir is not like super amazing, but it's definitely playable, without a doubt. Paladin Tyrion is a dick.
Oh, that card's so
I hate him
good.
so much.
But it makes up for how bad Bova is.
That is true.
Like,
I've seen him played. It's
tragic.
I mean,
It's
I would
such
like
an
to say
insult
that, but
to
I've not
Bova
seen by it too much. By too much, I mean like twice.
It just makes me so mad to how bad Bova is.
You have to mulligan for it. And who wants to mulligan for a 5-drop in a Paladin deck, you know?
I don't know about you guys in terms of your history in WoW, but in WoW he was a big figure for a long time, because he was up until Varian Rin came back into the picture. He was the stand-in King of Stormwind, and then famously fell at the Wrathgate, for those of you playing at home, and then became the Lich King at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, for those of you who play Hearthstone and not WoW. I always find that weird, people who I meet who play Hearthstone but not WoW. I guess that's sort of like more of a testament to the reach of this game. But yeah, Bulbar Fire Dragon. Not that. I guess you get sort of like, the intended idea was the synergy with the muster for battle, because you get all these like guys dying and stuff, and then all your hero ability, it really feeds well into that. It's just if Bolvar, like you could make it like an 8 cost or something, and just this would like cement Big Game Hunter in the meta forever. But Bolvar, if it didn't have to be in your hand, if it was like the running total of your friendly millions,
yeah,
and that would make it make it like, I don't know if that'd make it nuts, but it would definitely make it like it could potentially end up in situations where it's like you kill it next turn or you die sort of thing. And I don't know, it's like it sounds like a bit of an overtune. It'd be interesting to play tests like that, but
I feel like if you're playing this, you have to play Muster for Battle.
Yeah.
I think all Paladin decks at the moment are playing Muster for Battle.
And then the magic number is 6-7. You don't want to make it 7 or more. That's it. You can't.
Entirely right.
If you play at 7, I mean, unless you're playing a bunch
capped by BGH.
Yeah. I mean, unless you want to make it a target, which then, I mean, a turn 5 target for big game hunter is not a bad idea, but I don't know. I guess if you're playing late game, it's good.
I can just see Tyrion laughing his ass off in the corner because he's a 6/6 and won't get ever touched by BGH.
Right.
Yeah, it just feels so clunky. But it's most definitely not the worst legendary that arrived with the GV.
No,
and the
can we all agree that the worst one was the Flame Leviathan?
Oh God.
The mage card.
Can we just agree that doesn't exist?
No, I wish.
Well, I guess like the one of the things that was thrown around was because of how good Blast Mage is. Leviathan could be good.
Well, here's
that would be unfair.
I watched an arena run. No, it wasn't. It was constructed. I watched Trump. You can actually find this video on YouTube. He's playing, I think it's a mech mage or something like that, and he puts in a flame Leviathan, and he's playing against Face Hunter, and the Face Hunter is just destroying his face. He draws flame Leviathan, it clears the board, and he just starts laughing like, "How can I lose now?" He still loses. And maybe that has something to do with how good cards like Undertaker were, but you pull this card, it does its thing, and you can still lose the game.
I would like to see what he picked Leviathan over in terms of the legendaries.
Yeah, right.
It would have to be spectacular because I don't know about you guys, but when you get mage in arena, you expect 10 wins. Because it's just
like mage is the best class in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think its ability to clean up minions, especially with its hero power,
that skill
is
strike,
just ridiculous. And then the push through value with all of the creatures you can possibly get in arena and all of the mage creatures, it's so good. And the secrets for mage are so good. Like duplicate is almost always going to get in a mage deck, and if you can duplicate something like just a decent body like Stranglethorn Tiger, like that's huge.
Or that Sledge Belcher. That's what I love to do.
Oh God!
Yeah,
it has mages. It's not just your opinion. It is statistically the best class to take in arena by a long way, and I think it's been speculated that this has a lot to do with the really good mage card or other good mage cards not being particularly high in terms of the rarity. So you look at Flame Strike, and it's a set common, I guess.
It's a basic.
It's a basic card. So it's
a basic Wrath effect, which is ridiculous.
It's a basic I wreck everything effect.
Yeah. It's insane. Like I've played up against people who've gotten like 3 Flame Strikes and 2 Water Elementals and like the perfect like mage setup, and they've gotten Snow Chuggers, and they've gotten Frostbolts and Fireballs and Polys, and it's just,
so they've basically got a constructed deck in arena, and that's when you win. That's when you get like
if you don't take this to 10 wins, I'm gonna slap the shit.
That's what I'll say. That's what the only real time I really get mad and abuse people is in arena. That's just because sometimes it's running. It just feels really unfair sometimes. Like when you have a definitely lesser draft than someone, and you've done all you possibly can to keep up with the curve and like trade, and they just never run out of threats. And you just add them at the end and be like, "You son of a bitch! If you do not get 10 wins, just uninstall and go back to playing Scrabble because this is not your game."
Scrabble, that meta.
Yeah. You can go use the word meta and mage and fuck off on the Scrabble board because I
Welcome
don't
to
want you here
Scrabble
anymore.
Meta Anatomy here with the Death Rattle crew.
Yeah, it's but
People have been
that's
having a
my
lot of
2 cents.
problems with Z's lately. But so I want to talk about Handlock at least briefly, because I don't know if you guys have been playing up against it. I haven't playing up against it a lot, but when I first started the season, it felt like that's all it was getting. It fell off pretty quickly.
It's a strong deck.
This seems to happen to you a lot, Tom.
It's a deck that everybody
It's
plays
a
to gain
deck
rank
I
really,
play
really
with.
quickly. I've seen, or that's what it looks like.
Nah.
I don't have anything against Handlock personally. I just kind of I'm sick and tired of seeing it, honestly. I'm kind of bitchy about that, I guess, in that sense. But
I'm sick and tired of this deck that has been around since the inception of the game.
exactly. It's a cool deck. I think it's the closest thing we have to a combo-y deck besides, I guess, the combo Warlock deck. But it's just really annoying.
It's kind of like the green decks in Magic, would you say, yeah?
What do you mean?
Like as far as
yeah.
playing big old minions?
Oh, yeah, kind of. Well, I'm not going to get into that combo, but yeah, it's really quick. I would actually say Ramp Druid is kind of more like the
That's
green
true.
deck where you where you just ramp out with mana dorks and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and fetching for lands and such. But yeah, Handlock is similar to that, I would say also. Handlock is more control-y than a green deck. I mean, that really has no prevalence with the meta of this game, but
Handlock, I feel like you have to have the right tech cards in. You've got to have you're definitely playing big game hunters. You're definitely playing Black Knight, and you're playing silences for the drakes. The
Handlock's a really
Twilight Drakes.
Twilight Drakes. Thank you.
There's no messing with the list unless it's meta calls. All right, I'm playing up against a lot of secrets. I'm going to throw in a Kezon Mystic, or
yeah.
I'm playing up against a lot of minion heavy decks. I'm going to throw in another. What's that guy's name? Mental Dislocator guy or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The mind control deck.
Thank you. Yep. Mind control deck.
Mind control deck, yeah. And then I'm playing up against a lot of control warrior and Handlock. I'm going to throw in another BGH or whatever. So
Yeah, I think it's just sort of I don't know, Handlock is a bit, at the moment at least, it's a little bit clunky with, I guess, the finisher potential. So you look at what's really being up there in the meta, and you've got Mech Mage and Face Hunter, and even Ramp Druid has a bit of reach. The problem is at the moment there's a bit, decks have a bit of reach in terms of they can just hit you directly. And that's sort of where I guess Handlock falls apart a bit. And the other thing is there's some decks that are slower than Handlock, and that's sort of where it also falls apart. You play against the Control Warrior, the Control Pally, and they have infinite answers to your giants, and that's the problem. Is in a meta where BGH is really good, and all the Pallies and Warriors and stuff are running them, you give them +1 thing, and you've only got 4 giants. It's just you lose a lot. I just don't. Handlock sort of it's still really good, and because you often there's those times where you get that turn 4 mountain giant, they have no answer. You just smacking them in the face.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely it's making a slight comeback, I think, but it's definitely not as good as it was last season.
No, I feel like now if you play it, you want to get as much value as you can and burn the removal as early as you can, so that way you can. Okay, I'm going to play the Mountain Giant. Okay, there's a BGH. Play another Mountain Giant. There's the other BGH. Okay, but you're out of those, so now I've got Molten Giants I can still play. Or, I guess if you're running one that runs, what's the name? What's the Mal'Ganis? You can still play those big ones, but the big beefy bodies. But
yeah,
you got to play around those. Yeah. And that's what I think makes it difficult.
Yeah.
I also think that just more Pallies is just hard because it's such it's just equality, anything.
Oh, quality consecrate your the Aldor Peacekeeper. There's nothing worse than playing the 8/8 and then it getting Peacekeepered.
Peacekeeper is obnoxious, man. So annoying.
It's such a good card. It's such a good card.
Just as to quote, just turn things into wieners. That's
Yeah.
that's what the world champion Mr. Firebet refers to it as. I'm a paladin. I turn things into wieners.
Now, for those at home, if you are playing something like this and you've got a big that comes out with good stats and doesn't have any effects like a death rattle, things like that, remember that if something that you're playing gets peacekeepered, you can silence that battle cry effect, and so a mountain giant will become an 8/8 again.
You can recombobulate it.
Yeah, that as well. Yes, and
yeah.
I've seen some decks. I haven't seen very many, but I have seen decks run recombobulators. It's really good, especially too if you're you hit something big with it, it still stays alive, and you recombobulate it because you can get it back again.
Handlock runs it a lot because it's basically just healing up your giants and stuff, because there's no other giants that cost that, or no other cards that cost the same as your giants. They run that, and they also run they run Combobulator, and I've also seen Druids run Recombobulator. I don't know how well that's working. I've seen it like a couple times, but I could imagine it's not a bad card to run in.
I'm wondering if 2 is probably too many.
Probably, I think it's a 1-up. It's decent. As 2, it's probably excessive.
When it was really good, sort of like last season / last year, it was definitely 2, because you could just you had. You can always RNG something else. I remember one of my best RNG was turning an Iron Beak Owl into an Iron Beak Owl, and I was just like, "Did I misclick? Did something bad happen?"
That value.
And then you always get like the rolling high of like turning your 1-drop into a zombie chow, and that's like as good as you can get.
Yeah.
When you hit the high end, it was really nice. But yeah, I have not played against Handlock, nor have I seen Handlock this season.
I haven't either.
I have. When I day 1 of the season when I was playing, I was like, all right, let's get into this. It was just a shit ton of Handlock. I was pretty bummed to play against that, but I've yet to see it within the past couple of days. I saw it maybe like once 2 days ago, I think. But it's not. I don't think it's that big a deal right now. I'm not sure if that's the case, or if it's just that everybody who is playing Handlock is already up in the higher ranks right now.
They've left us behind.
Or they have just been like, all right, well, I'm done playing Handlock. A buddy of mine was playing a lot of Handlock because he was like, oh, I'm going to dump a bunch of money into the game. And I was like, all right, thanks for feeding into this pay-to-win bullshit. And he made a Handlock, and he started playing it, and he was like, dude, Handlock's so fun. And I was like, yeah, I bet it is. I'm going to go play Zoolock because I don't have money. And then he makes Control Warrior, and I'm like, dude, are you just striving to be the most cancerous person in the world? And he's now playing Control Warrior. Like he did all right with Handlock, but now he's switched over to Control Warrior and says he likes Control Warrior more.
I think it's funny that you think that's. I don't think Handlock or Control Warrior are cancerous. I
don't think they're cancerous.
I just think
anything that beats him is cancerous.
Control Warrior is cancerous. I don't think Handlock's cancerous, but he's just playing the most the oldest decks in the book that are some of the most control-y.
But come on, it does take some knowledge of the game and what you're.
I want to call bullshit on that. I don't disagree that it takes knowledge of the game to play a control deck, but I think it's much personally, coming from playing a lot of control and Magic, it takes a little bit more skill, in my opinion, to trade with creatures and play a control-y thing with creatures than it does to play a control deck like Warrior.
I don't know.
From what I've seen, I'm not gonna go.
I can feel the viewers leaving. It's controversial opinions.
Like how honestly hard can it be to play Control Warrior?
No.
And I'm not gonna say that you're wrong, but let's be honest. Like you got a bunch of creatures that are gonna give you armor. You got your top end that you can just slam down and win games, and you have control cards.
Here's what makes it difficult, in my opinion, and I think I can lose games for a number of reasons. When I get upset with myself for losing a game, it's because I didn't play the game right, meaning I didn't use the correct removal on the correct minion or at the correct time. So, I mean, something that if you play one, you got to think about, okay, shield slam. Do I want to shield slam or do I want to execute this minion? Am I going to have armor later to use a shield slam? Or is it going to be, am I not going to have enough armor at one point to kill that Dr. Boom? You know,
So you have to optimize your removal.
but you have to think ahead. Okay, what does my opponent?
Right.
Because it's not like Face Hunter or Mech Mage where it's, well, I don't really care what my opponent plays. I mean, you still need to know, read ahead, but Control Warrior, you need to know what's in your deck, what you've played, but you also need to be able to read your opponent's deck because, Mech Mage, there's not really using a Shield Slam or an Execute on a Yeti or a Spider Tank isn't necessarily bad because those are generally some of the beefy minions in that deck when you're playing against them. So whereas if you're playing something like I don't know, another mid-range deck, maybe Paladin, I don't really want to use removal on a 2/2 shielded mini bot or something like that because they play Tyrians and they play those 5/6s that they play. What are those? Guardian of Kings. So, I don't know. I there's a lot more thought. That's why I like playing it. There's a lot more thought that goes into.
I don't disagree that there's thought that goes into it. Definitely more so than say Face Hunter, but I don't think it's skill that you're looking for with Control Warrior. It's knowledge. Just okay. I'm playing up against a mage in the first couple of turns, and then you see he plays Cogmaster. And right there, Cogmaster.
Yeah, but
it's like okay, I'm playing up against Mech Mage. I need to watch out for this, and then I need to use my removal on this, this, and this.
But same thing. What happens when I play something like an Armor Smith? I can play that turn 2 and just throw something on the board. But if I'm playing against a control deck, I don't want to play an Armor Smith. I want to wait until they play some things, later in the game, so that way I can combo damage off of cards like Whirlwind and things like that.
Right.
I don't know. The skill would be saying, okay, I've got minions on the board. He's got some. Okay, I can do some shenanigans here with a Whirlwind or my Death Rattle and my Death Spite and get a bunch of armor and then Shield Slam. So I don't know. That's where I think that takes the skill is knowing. I don't know. I think the knowledge is the skill. Knowing when to play and when to combo.
Yeah. I think
like I said, I don't.
Still part is not good.
I don't disagree with you.
It sounds like you did.
Well, I don't disagree with you in the fact that it does take thought. I disagree with you in the sense that it does take skill. I don't or maybe I'm that good. Maybe I'm just so good, which I'm obviously not. But I just feel like it's not that hard to play. Like everybody talks about Control Warrior and it's like, yeah, well, because even though I have all these legendaries and stuff, it's still a difficult deck to play. It's not like any other decks, and it's not like any other deck.
Right.
But it has its very one-sided matches, like what is it like the mid-range druids going around like gives Control Warrior a hard time.
Yes.
And mid-range shaman too gives Control Warrior a hard time from what I understand.
Super face decks and good mid-range decks. Even I've seen some mid-range hunters that just will destroy. A warrior if they can kill it quick enough. Yeah,
it's just it pisses me off when like I play up against Control. Like last season when I was up and around, I think it was rank 8 when this happened, and I got to rank 6 last season. But when I was around like rank 8, I played a lot of Control Warriors, and I remember like a lot of like this happened more than twice. Specific situations where I was playing up against a Control Warrior, and he would make like blatantly bad trades, and I would be struggling to get really good cards out because I was not pulling the stuff, and or I would be pulling like at least decent cards, but he would just have really, really good answers, make kind of not so great trades, and still win. Like, yeah, he might be doing something I don't know what's going on, but like when you're gonna run like, I'm trying to think of something like when you're gonna run an Armor Smith into like my Azure Drake and then like Whirlwind and play an Execute on my Azure Drake after that, like you just wasted so many cards.
Yeah.
You didn't need to, and you're still gonna win because you have more cards than I do, that like more better cards than I do. And
it's the
rar.
I think playing against a Control Warrior, I should just say warrior because that's really the only deck right now, unfortunately.
Pirates?
Pirates I don't know. Maybe not in the meta.
I got beaten by one of those today. It was not fun.
It was actually, no, that was a pirate rogue. Sorry, it was a pirate mech rogue.
Yeah. Playing against Warrior, it's all about getting value. If you can outvalue them or make them use their Grommashes early, like if you can get someone to use the Grommash for removal, you've basically won the game.
That's when you take it away from them. If you see them drop a Grommash and you're not in range, it's just like, well, you lose. That was sort of my turning point when I was learning, I guess, Control Warriors. Was you cannot use Grommash for removal because it's such a thing. It's I don't know. I never liked the idea of going into a game thinking that I'm going to lose because I'm playing against a Control Warrior. I don't mind going in thinking that, okay, because it's a Control Warrior, I'm going to have to play slightly differently, and he's definitely got an edge on me. But I think openly thinking that he's going to, no matter how bad he plays, he's going to win, which is definitely possible in Hearthstone because of the RNG in the game. But you gotta be a bigger man, Tom. You need to just assume in the long run.
I'm done ranting about Control Warrior
controversial opinions are good because it saves us from a circle jerk.
Like I'm so from going in the Magic meta. Like I played blue white red control for a while. Back when I was like really really bad at the game. That was fun to play. And it got me better at the game, and then I switched to blue-white control at the turn of the standard season, and then I tried Esper, and then I went back to blue-white, and then I went to blue-black, and I played a lot of control, and I know the inner workings more or less of control decks, and I know how to like stereotypically, I would say how to play a control deck. You just have to have a lot of knowledge of the meta, and you have to have a lot of knowledge exactly of what somebody is playing. Like if you're playing up against a mech mage, you need to know the exact list. And I could do that in Magic. I could say, oh, you're playing green, white, red, and you're playing a lot of white creatures, so you're playing Brave Naya, and I need to watch out and counter your Brave the Elements and your Boros Charms and stuff like that. And like I knew all of the things that I needed to do, and I feel like that's the problem I have with like Control Warriors. Like I from playing old Magic like control decks, it wasn't like an insta win. If I played blue white control, it was no insta win. With Control Warrior, there's a lot of decks that it shits on. Insta wins. Like Mech Rogue, Oil Rogue, Fatigue Mage, Freeze Mage. Oh, God. And Face Hunter. That was the other thing. I almost never win against Control Warrior with Face Hunter.
The only deck I would like say that it's essentially you're talking like a 90%, 10% win-loss ratio against is Freeze Mage.
Oh yeah.
To a lesser extent, sort of like Fatigue Mage, just because by function of Freeze Mage having like a capped amount of damage versus the Warrior having infinite, or not close to infinite amount of effective life gain with the armor.
Right.
The freeze mage kind of, from what I've seen, one of the things it wants to do, if it can, is Alexstrasza your face and then burn you out with ice lances and.
Well, yeah, that's the idea. But with the addition of things like Shield Maiden and the fact that you can Shield Maiden and Shield Block on the same turn, it's just like,
man.
well, fuck, because there's so much. Like,
fuck.
Yeah, but other than that, I'd say there's not a lot else that it's like I don't think it's an instant win.
No, and I think this is something good to talk about because I know there are a lot of people that have a problem with Warriors as well, but it's just learning how to play against it. It's with Warriors generally, the longer the game goes on,
the more likely they are.
They are to win unless you can get the value. Thing. Yeah, so if you're playing a face deck, then there's nothing different. You just go for face, and this is the best matchup because if you can just hit them quickly and kill them, it doesn't matter. What they have. Okay, they have a Grommash and a Alexstrasza. Well, it doesn't matter. It's turn 6 and they lose. Otherwise, it's really about getting the best value for your cards, better value than a Control Warrior can. Get them to use their cards inefficiently, and you'll win. Because they don't have a lot. They've got a couple closers, generally. But if your life's still high, it doesn't matter if they burn all their cards.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Well, that's enough, I guess, of the Control Warrior.
Yeah, like I said, I'm done. I'm done ranting about Control Warrior.
I think you feel about 5 kilos lighter after getting that off your chest.
I don't.
The one thing I will say
in the world that are gonna hate me because of my hatred for Warrior, and there's gonna be at least a couple people that are like, yeah.
Oh yeah, no,
you
definitely,
tell 'em, Tom.
definitely.
But
hey, you tell him, girl. We need to fight this thing.
Sucks. I play Space Hunter. Hey, Warrior. I hate Warrior, and I probably always will until I make it and play it.
I was just about to say that. It's like what you need to do is you need to make it and play it.
Because then you'll learn how it loses. I mean, that's a big thing.
Yeah, because you'll be like, oh my god, this thing is terrible.
Yeah.
No, it's like the biggest example of things you lose to in the heyday of Zoo and to a lesser extent, or is the old like Undertaker Face Hunter thing was if you don't. I remember there's a player who was like top 10 NA named BMA, and he wrote an article based on how well Zoo does against things, and one of the bit on against Control Warrior was basically the match will depend on if they get their turn 1/2 Fiery War Axe. And if they don't get it, then you're basically going to win, because the idea is you're going to build a lot of tempo and just start smacking. And I think that can be generalized to a lot of the aggro decks. So like, your Mech Mage can, and even Face Hunter, if you fail to get that early control, which is what, with the exception of the Fiery War Axe, is what the Warrior lacks, is where you'll win. And particularly why it was weak to Zoo is because Brawl wasn't effective or as effective because you could build what was called Death Rattle or Death Rattle Pressure. So if they kill everything, you're going to get, your Nerubians, your like 1/1 tokens and shit like that. But so the best, as Mike said, the best way to see the holes in the deck is to play it and lose with it, because then you sort of like, hang on, this is it's no Superman. It's not invincible. It's not a deck of steel. It's a deck of
you see where the holes are,
flaws.
and you're able to okay, now I know where, if I'm playing against one, I know where to kind of to play around it.
And that sort of leads into something I wanted to talk about, which was what to do when you're on a slump / losing spree and you hate the world and there are not holes in your monitor yet, but there very well could be if you lose that next game.
I think there's no one simple answer to that, but I know one tip is to quit for a bit. Just stop playing. Yeah. Get a glass of water or a beer or something and do something else for a bit. Because if you're gonna get in a loss streak, I don't think it's like just like people who play WoW Arena and League and Dota, where you go on tilt and you play worse. I don't think that's like as prevalent in Hearthstone, but it's definitely something to watch out for. You just want to cool down.
It's definitely prevalent in Hearthstone, and it's like it's one of the big I guess tips that any like professional poker player will give you is if you're tilting, just go do something else for a bit. Yep. One of the other things that really sort of gives you I guess a leg up on the competition is gaining perspective over your games, and the best way to do that is to record your wins and losses, because if you don't record your wins and losses and you have a particularly bad day where you lose two or three games, you instantly forget out all your wins. You just remember how unlucky you got with like that knife juggle and just stuff like that. And that's what you need to be able to avoid thinking that it's why me, why did he have that? It's all about them. It's not me. And that gives you, recording with like her stats or Hearthstone Tracker allows you to go back through and look for like leaks in your game, like particular classes. You say, I'm losing a lot to Control Warrior. Maybe I need to open a bit stronger and work out something that can have a better game, or maybe I'm doing something wrong against Control Warrior.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I had to look through my things, and with the meta being as like, I guess, fluid as it is, I was sort of like, holy shit, there's nothing nothing stands out as obvious to me, but I was switching decks a bunch. So I guess one of the things I did, particularly this week, was I opened at the start of the season, and I think I played 30 or 40 games and had moved I don't think I moved the rank. I think I just broken even essentially, which is for anyone, we all know that is incredibly frustrating because it's like I just wasted all that time and I'm back where I started. And I guess one of the next level things that you can do is record your games, is
Absolutely.
use something like for if we're preaching to the budget people and myself, we're talking stuff like Open Broadcaster, the OBS, because that has a really good like screen recording functionality. You can use Fraps, you can use Overwolf, anything like that to record your games. Preferably with some, you got to sit there and talk through it, because then when you review it, you'll have a better idea of what you were thinking. And in general, just talking through your moves will make you think about them more. So in theory, you'll play better Hearthstone while recording it because you're talking through your moves, so you can later review it. But it's very sort of, I guess, time consuming. It's quite a time consuming exercise. The biggest tip that you can really take is just keep playing. People get stuck into this mindset of like entitlement, like they have a good opening. I deserve to win this game. I'm going to win this game. Why didn't I win this game? It's sort of like you just gotta it seems like it's so infuriating that we just can't give them this one magic answer. It's like, eat a banana and you win all your Hearthstone games. It's just like, no. You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to.
Don't play into your tilt. Don't play into your tilt, but keep pushing through things. Like when you go on tilt and you notice you're on tilt, give it a break and then come back to it. But
I think and
just get through it, and that's what it takes. And if you're like, so my problem was I started out with Mid-Range Hunter this season, and Mid-Range Hunter was tier 1. It was really high up in tier 1, and then everybody started playing Pally, and Pally is pretty much the main counter to mid-range. That and Oil Rogue, I think are pretty hard counters to mid-range Hunter, and mid-range Hunter just plummeted because Oil Rogue and Paladin shot up. So I was playing mid-range Hunter at the start of the season, and I noticed I was just getting destroyed, and so I kept switching decks, and I tried Zulok again. I hadn't played Zulok in a little while, and I had a little bit of success with that, and I finally came upon the Mech Shaman, and if you go on to Tempo Storm and look at Magic Amy's ladder tier list, you'll look at Aggro Mech Shaman and you'll be like, why would you play this deck? It's got so, like, they're saying it's got so many really, really, like, not in your favor matchups. Like, it just goes from Tempo Rogue, Handlock, mid-range Mech Shaman, Control mid-range Paladin, like all the way down, Control Priest, which I do want to talk about at least for a little bit. It's got so many really, really bad matchups, but I don't entirely agree with that. I think the only thing that really, really screws me over is Control Priest, Control Warrior, and Ramp Druid is like the main things. But I found this deck, and thanks to Matt, and I love it to death. I first started playing it, didn't have a lot of success with it, but it was really, really fun. So I just kept playing with it, powered through, and I eventually got to rank 12 from my teeter-tottering of rank 16 and 15. Experimenting with decks, I think, is something to do, because if you're noticing your decks are getting countered, try and play something or try and make something that you haven't done before, even if it is kind of budget. It just so happened that I was pretty lucky to have a lot of the cards that I needed in Mech Shaman, and in all honesty, it's not that expensive too.
Yeah, it's not a particularly expensive deck. It's
No.
It's
It's-
Firebat and purple drinks. Rank number 1, legendary Mech Shaman for those you playing at home.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is that, like, there's a lot of things that you can swap out if you absolutely have to. Like, I don't have Black Knight, so I'm going back and forth between Ironbeak Owl and Earthshock. I think I kind of like Earthshock a little more. What else was it in there that Doomhammer? If you don't have Doomhammer, I had 2. Because I don't even know how I got 2. I guess I got them like way back in the day. But I heard some people were using Bloodlust over Doomhammer. So if you don't have Doomhammer, you can do that. Not my personal preference because I have a Doomhammer. But I don't see why, or I see why that could be used. It's helps. I think that it was Mech Shaman I really liked, and then a lot, like I was really surprised to be seeing was a lot of Control Priest, which isn't super good because it kind of gets countered by a lot I wouldn't say countered. It just doesn't have a great matchup against a lot of the decks that are being played, like Paladin and Ramp Druid.
Oh,
and
Druid destroys him. Yeah.
Yeah, Druid is in a really, really good spot, and I'm glad we're talking about it this week. Control Priest, I don't really know much that has changed since GVG. I think it's pretty much almost the same thing as what it used to be. Like, you got Dr. Boom from GVG, and is there anything else? Vol'jin was the actually impactful thing.
I'm seeing kind of less of the what I call the thief priest, where you're stealing minions either with Coat Ball Shadow Priest, or you're shrinking them with the Shrinkmeister.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
I hate them.
I'm seeing a lot less of those. I'm still seeing them, but I'm seeing more of the just straight up control where they're going to have an Arcanized Soul Priest or Akanai Soul Priest. I'm sorry, and Circle of Healing.
Really expensive deck, 1,400 dust ish. That's if you're running a lot of the legendaries.
14,000 of.
Oh, sorry, 14,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. The deck I'm looking at is running like, oh my god, Sylvanas, Black Knight, Baron, Dr. Boom, Velen, and Ragnaros. I don't entirely agree with the Velen and Baron Geddon. I can see why I think that'd be more situational. Sylvanas is okay. Black Knight is being played in like every deck right now
because of Druid. Yeah.
Yeah. And Velen, I'm not a giant fan of. I don't know how I say that. Rag. We talked about that earlier. It's still a good card. BGH is kind of hurting us. But it also has Harrison Jones and Vol'jin. Vol'jin's really cool. I like that card. I don't know like if it's super super great, but it's a really cool card. Just
it's great. It's like amazing into something like an Ancient of War. It's just like wealth.
Oh god, yeah. I would imagine.
Yeah.
I think that's best case scenario. I think is like 10 HP Vol'jin. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
Mentioned I've seen Freeze Mage and Fatigue Mage still sitting where they are in the tier list wise. I think again, like Freeze Mage is still a good deck to have. I think honestly, you probably only want to play Freeze Mage right now, Freeze Mage right now if you're up in Legend. Like I've said many times before, I'm not a Legend. I'm not that good. But I think that would be a good deck if you are playing in Legend or if you're going to competitive level events, and you need a good counter to some things. That would be like Freeze Mage would probably be pretty good. I know some people have been running it, but Fatigue Mage I haven't seen a lot of. I think that's kind of fallen off. I don't know like if it's just bad or whatever, but I think it's still a decent deck. I wouldn't play it out of personal preference. I'm not a giant fan of the style. I don't think it's like super amazing, but I think it is quite deserving of its spot in the tier list. It's relevant enough.
Yeah.
And you got mid-range Druid and Zulok still where they are pretty much. So.
Matt, do you have anything else?
Just on the I guess the Fatigue Mage thing. It's a really sort of it's one of those decks you bring just to screw over. It's really good against like
super
Freeze
situational.
Mage. It's really situational. It's good against Freeze Mage. It's not like it's if you've got a couple of hours to play a game, then sure, play some Freeze Mage or Fatigue / Deck Out Druid. But for the most part, I don't know. It just doesn't seem amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Isaac, my brother Isaac was talking to me. He was like, "Yeah, I've been playing Fatigue Druid, and I really like that." And I was like, "And you're also Hitler."
So I can't look at you, and you need to leave.
No, it's not that bad. It's I mean he used to play he was when I introduced him to Magic, one of the first decks I showed him was Mill, like blue black Mill, and he was like, "This is so cool." And I don't know why, like a lot of people when they first start playing Magic, I notice is like they immediately either go to like aggro decks or Mill decks, and Isaac has always stuck with Mill.
I'm a big fan of Mill decks.
I guess he's gonna try and force that in this game as well.
I don't have a problem with Mill decks. I
don't
think
either.
they're fine.
In Magic, they kind of suck, anyways. Unfortunately, so
I mean, you still have a chance to play the card unless they make you overdraw. So it's not. I don't think it's bad. I think it forces your opponent to play differently.
If we see a Mind Sculpt card come out of come out in Hearthstone, which is it's 2 mana and says target player discards target player puts the top 7 cards of their library into their graveyard. If we see a card like that just like burns top 3 cards, burn the top 3 cards of somebody's deck. That's a thing. Fatigue is going to start.
Yeah.
That's a thing. That is disgusting. That's how is it? So like it won't happen.
Yeah,
because it's not fun. Like I think a lot of things that Blizzard, the aim of the game is like you got to keep the game fun for the casual because that's where they're making most of their money. And while the competitive scene is good and great and it'll help the game grow, you got to remember a lot of their money. I don't know. I actually don't know how much money, but yeah, I assume a good percentage comes from the casual player. They'd like to keep it fun for the casual player, and cards like that just kill the fun, and that's why they had such a big problem with Miracle Rogue because the term has been thrown around a shit ton, and it's uninteractive. It's
yes,
I'm sitting there playing solitaire, but like
I'd like to see some combo like legit combo decks like. I don't know exactly how we could do it. It would require a lot of triggered abilities, obviously, but well, maybe not obviously, but there's not a lot of cards right now that we have, so we can't play a lot of combos. But I really hope a combo deck, like a legitimate, probably like insta-kill combo deck, comes around that's balanced. That Blizzard doesn't just say, "Oh, well, we have an insta-kill combo deck we have to get rid of," because that's something Blizzard would totally do.
There was a combo deck like that. It was a warrior deck before they changed Warsong Commander. So Warsong Commander, instead of being restricted to lower creatures, it was any of your creatures got charged.
Oh Jesus!
It used to be the idea would be you would get your Youthful Brewmasters and you get 2 Youthful Brewmasters and 2 Molten Giants and just
Jesus.
Yeah, I thought something to that might not be 100%, but that was the idea, is just get down low enough. And because the Molten Giant counter isn't affected by armor, so you still have that effective health, you'll actually be higher than you actually are. So you have 20 health with 10 actual life.
Right, because armor is nuts.
But yeah, they want to. That's why there's been a general trend in the nerfing of removing these combo decks. I mean, that's
kind of what Blizzard does. I mean, like that's what they've done in a lot of things. Like when something crazy comes along, they kind of get rid of it. Like in I don't have any specific examples off the top of my head. Shame on me. But a lot of the things they've done with WoW, like some of the cooler things, they've kind of taken out, unnerfully. Well, and I'm not going to get that rant. I can rant about WoW.
Like they did with like Buzzard Unleash combo. They nerfed that. Maybe too much, but
they're probably going to nerf a lot of things. And I just hope for the future of Hearthstone, they don't keep it to where it's all mid-range decks, because that's. I'm not saying that's what it is now, but the format is about, I would say, 85% mid-range decks. Like, the closest, like we have Face Hunter, we have Zulok, and those are basically the only actual aggro decks we have. Because they're small.
What would you consider Mech Mage?
Oh see, the Mech Mage deck now is very high end. Like it's got a lot of low drops. I would say it's the closest thing to aggro that we have in the mid-range decks. I don't think it's an aggro deck. I think it's more of just a very aggressive mid-range deck.
So in theory, the idea behind, I guess, all card games is if it keeps getting pulled to mid-range, in theory the meta will eventually balance itself out, and people will start playing, because once something gets solidified or temporarily solidified, and people start playing things to counter that, and then it'll pull back. So it's a very sort of interesting, I guess, ecosystem. So I think while you may think there are a bunch of mid-range decks, if there are, it'll sort itself out. I'm confident.
I agree
in saying that.
I hope so.
You might just have a shit week next week, but
that comes with the releasing of more cards. Like we only have so many cards right now. So in the inception of Magic, we only had so many cards, and everything was basically mid-range decks, and then they branched out and had a lot more things to work with. So
I
and
think
who knows? They're probably going to come out with something crazy in the future.
Magic was the first real CCG, wasn't it, or TCG?
I don't know.
The first,
it's definitely the oldest.
The first one that was like actually competitive, I would probably agree. Yeah,
we need some older
for
people.
20 years now.
We need some older people.
Listeners are gonna murder us. I'm sure there's like, no, it was so and so.
Call of Duty was the first card game. Yeah,
these guys are noobs.
These guys don't even know.
But what I mean is like Magic the Gathering sort of paved the way for a lot of card game theory.
Yeah, I don't want to be looked at as that the guy that's like, yeah, I play Hearthstone only because I can't play Magic. Like, I actually really enjoy Hearthstone, but I was like that for a little while because I was such a Magic elitist, and then I came over and started playing Hearthstone because I didn't have time to play Magic or the money, and I really enjoy Hearthstone now.
That was my biggest thing about Hearthstone being superior to all other card games is the money thing.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The difference between Hearthstone and say Magic is while pay to win might still be a thing, is you definitely pay a lot less. Like,
absolutely.
Like at least like a quarter or less of what you'd pay for a like T1 Magic deck. And then what happens is with the way the format works, right? Isn't it like after a year, all of those cards are sort of phased out if they're not reprinted?
It depends on the format.
Right.
In Standard, basically what happens is after a year, half of the cards go away, and you get the newest half of the cards, and then you have those as your old half of the cards, and then the new half of the cards come in, and then like it kind of cycles out like that. It's a little more complicated than that. They're actually changing that up to make it more simple, which is really good actually. But there's 3 different formats, and that's one of there's a bunch of different formats, but there's 3 main different formats, which is Standard, Modern, Legacy, and they all have their different things. But like Standard is where it's cheapest, and that's. I wouldn't say it's the most competitive, but that's where it's most played because it's easiest to get into because it's cheapest. I like when I first started playing, what was it? The Return to Ravnica and Theros block Standard. I started playing with like a $30 deck. It was super cheap, and it was aggro, and it was the first of that type of aggro I'd ever played. And it was really, really fun, and I was just wiping the floor with everybody at my LGS, and I eventually got to play the tier decks, and those got up to about $200. But the cool thing about Magic is that you can trade cards, which is something I'd like to see in Hearthstone, but it's probably not going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I don't blame Blizzard.
It'll never happen. Yeah,
there's 99% chance
it's like happen. Can you spell gold farmers?
Yeah.
The problem would be like you just keep disenchanting all the free stuff until you have enough to make it legendary and trade it back to your main account. It's just it's too exploitable, and it's not needed, and that's part of the reason why I guess because you get free. I guess the whole idea of being able to get free packs is just fantastic. And so that's superior because less of.
We could probably make a rant section of the podcast.
This is it.
One of my rants is they need to mess with the dust rates. I think
obligatory Tom rant about Control Warrior to start the show off, and then we'll get to some real content. But every week I will have a new Tom rant about Control Area.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Spit words out. Stupid shit. I'm done.
Grinds my gears.
Well,
Crash every time.
Well, I guess that's it for this. We'll take a quick break and be right back. DRC would like to thank Brainiacs for their support of this podcast. If you have a tech idea for improving your business's workflow, Brainiacs can provide a turnkey solution to specifically fit your needs. You can contact them at www.brainiux.com. All right, welcome back. This is Deck of the Week, joined again by Just Soup and Mushu. And this week's Deck of the Week is Ramp Druid. We've already talked about it. Yes. We've already talked about it a little bit, but I kind of wanted to save a little bit. I know we're all kind of antsy. I've had a lot of success with this deck this week.
I don't actually have the deck, unfortunately. I didn't have the cards, nor I'm sorry. But I played against it a lot. That was actually, I played more druids than I did paladins, and I played a lot of hunters. I played 13 hunters and 13 druids, and one of those druids was fatigue druid, and the rest were all either ramp or mid-range decks that were trying to be ramp druids. I, as the shaman player that I am now, I guess, I was getting I was getting kind of flustered because it hurts my deck, and I think ramp druid's in a very, very good place. And unless somebody comes out with a really crazy meta call and people start just copying that person, I think ramp druid is not going to go anywhere but up. It's in a great place. So.
It's you're 100% right about this. And the interesting thing about Ramp Druid is, for just quickly for those of you who don't know what Ramp Druid is, I imagine it's a very small percentage of you. It's basically the idea is to abuse wild growth and to a lesser extent nourish to invest mana so you basically get a mana crystal ahead of your opponent, or in Nourish's case, gain 2 mana crystals.
Yeah.
So
innervate.
Innervate, yeah.
Well, yeah. This took a while to become popular. It wasn't really until sort of around the time when I think it was the first time I remember hearing about it, at least, was when Gara. Or Gara Best Shaman, as his Twitch handle is, won DreamHack with a very heavy ramp druid, which had wild growths and nourishes, and the idea was to ramp up to Ancients of War and other massive creatures that your opponent just play too many threats too quickly because you're 3 mana ahead of them. And that's the general gist of what a ramp druid is. Nowadays, the ramp really sort of revolves around, as you say, abusing wild growth and innovate, getting those things out early. And the best thing I think about wild growth is it's pretty good throughout most of the game. There's sort of a bit of a drop off around turn 8 and 9, I think, because of it becomes less relevant to gain that mana. And there's a couple of turns towards in the middle of the game where it's sort of you toss up, do I want to play this? Do I not want to play this? But that's sort of I guess, subjective based on what you have in your hand. And then, of course, the magical turn 10. This was something that took me a long time to figure out how to use. Was play on turn 10 and you get the excess mana because it's not intuitive that would happen.
Yeah, the wild growths, yeah.
Wild growth is actually pretty decent. Late, even the only turns you really don't want to play it is I would say maybe post turn 6.
Yeah.
Well, later in the game, turn 7 through 9, and then when you hit turn 10 is relevant again, really relevant again. I like it. I like it a lot.
I think it towards the middle / later turns, it becomes okay if you can cap it off instead of a hero power. So if you play, say, on 7, play Druid of the Claw and play Wild Growth, it's it's not too bad. And then so it's sort of the things that we well, let's hear about your success, Mr. Tech 2. What's been, how have you been doing?
Yeah. So my games so far have been pretty good. I've got the deck that I'm playing. I've been just kind of looking around and net decking and see what people are doing. I found this kind of interesting. I put in Grove Tender, 2 of them, into my deck, which is let me find it real quick, put it on the display. It's a 2/4 for 3, and the text reads, choose one, give each player a mana crystal, or each player draws a card.
That's a solid card within itself.
Yeah.
That's a really, really easy pick in, say, Arena.
Oh, so. Yeah. What I don't like about it is, obviously, it gives your opponent the same advantage. But I found for my deck, which I've got an Azure Drake in it, I've got Faceless Manipulator, 2 Sludge Belchers. It's kind of hard to get early game. And this gives me the option to either ramp faster or draw a card if I have really, really high-end cards. Like if I have 2 Ancients of Lores or 2 Ancient of Wars in my deck. You're kind of stuck until unless you pull an Innervate or you've Wild Growth twice. It's kind of hard to play those cards early.
Are you playing KT?
Not in this deck, no.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen people play it. I've opted more for Sylvanas, Black Knight, and Ragnaros. And I do play 2 Sunwalkers, which I don't see those played a lot. But
wow, yeah.
These have done pretty well, especially against Priest. Priest can't touch me. Because you've got nothing but 4 attack minions. You've got Sunwalkers, you've got Azure Drakes, Druid of the Claws. Like I play Spellbreaker with just 1. Just all these 4 attack creatures, and they can't do anything to me.
I feel like if you're running Sunwalker, you would probably want to run more so want to run Kel'Thuzad.
Yeah, I've thought about it. And if I was to trade anything out, it might be Ragnaros.
Rag KT. I think that's not a bad switch.
Rag for KT, in my opinion. You've obviously had more experience with the deck.
Yeah, Sylvanas is just a great card. Especially in this deck.
I entirely agree with that placement.
Yeah, it's such a tempo card. If you play it on turn 6 on an empty board, not really the best play unless if you're playing against like another ramp where they're looking to play big minions or even small ones. Well, let me step back. I would not play this on an empty board. You want at least 1 or 2 creatures out, but it can give you tempo. That's what I like about this card. It's not so much what you steal. It's your opponent has to play around it.
Right. It's so dumb. The best situation I think to play it into is when they have 2 minions, because particularly minions that are sort of around like the 4/4, not like strong enough to kill Sylvanas by itself, but where there's a possibility that they can sack both minions into it, because then you're sort of forcing out value.
Or if you're playing against a mech mage and they've got a Tinkertown Technician at a 4/4 and a Mechanical Yeti, it's great because their option is to silence it or run both minions into it, and that thing's gone 2 for 1. I mean, that's awesome. That's an awesome trade.
So would you, from the list I've been seeing, would you say, like, in comparison to, well, not even in comparison, would you say this deck is pretty flexible as way of like what kind of list you can run? Because it sounds like it is to me.
The one thing that I'm disappointed it doesn't have room for is the combo, the Savage War Force of Nature combo.
What?
I know you can put it in. I know you can.
How do you what games?
What do you sacrifice though? Like, I'm not running one in my deck. I'm not running one. I know.
Weird noises and shit. How do you win a game then? That's sort of okay. So like,
it's value. I would just win straight by value.
That's not bad reasoning. I like the Force of Nature Savage Roar combo. I think if you're running a Druid deck, you should probably be running at least 1 Savage Roar just to close out games.
Well, not even Savage Roar is like good at all the time.
Yeah,
but no, I don't know. I can't envision like a good Druid deck that's like mid-range to ramp to high-end that doesn't run at least 1 combo. Up until I switched decks about midweek, I've said about 7 times, watching a Savage stream, and he was running ramp Druid, and he was like 3rd Legend or something, and he was only running 1 set of the combo, and I had been running 2. Well, I think I was running 1.5, so that's 1 Force of Nature and 2 Savage Roars. And that was really good. But this build that I've been using recently, which was Savich's build, was putting. Do you have Shade of Nax Ramesses?
I don't deck? In this deck, but I have seen a lot of people run those. Yes.
Yeah, I would at least put that as a 1 of. That card just can get out of hand.
And
it's in the meta.
I feel like this deck that I'm playing, Grove Tender, was picked over the Shades.
Grove Tender, it's like I can see it, but the only thing about Grove Tender is it's always a gamble.
Yes,
it's always a gamble that you're going to ramp better than your opponent, or you're going to draw better than your opponent.
Yeah,
the versatility with it is nice. Sorry, go ahead.
I just don't think you need to take that risk. I think there are better cards for the ramp druid, and I don't think you need to force that ramp.
No,
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I think Shade is a better, well, I think the Grove Tender piqued my interest. And it worked out. It's worked out for me. I think the only time it's ever hurt me was I was playing against a mech mage, and I ended up winning because they DC'd. But the way the game was going, unless my mana curve just played out perfect, I think I would have lost. Just what he was playing was just, man, talk about top deck. But other than that, it worked out pretty well. But I think Shade might. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a better pick than something like Grove Tender.
It's really cool how the meta call, or I don't know if they're meta calls anymore, really. Just like the meta countering cards like BGH and Mind Control Tech just fit in very, very well curve-wise in this deck. Because you don't have a lot of 3-drops, except for like Shade. And those two as one-ofs, you have 3-drops, so like if you have to play them early, you can't. Like obviously, you probably don't want to be playing big game hunter early game unless you're playing up against another ramp. But Mind Control Tech can very easily be played on curve if you absolutely have to. And hitting using a 3-mana card later in the game, especially for ramp druid, is no problem. Like when you want to be putting down like Druid of the Claw and Sludge Belcher and things because of Innervate, like late game Innervates and early game Wild Growth, and for people who do run Nourish, you can reach those, I guess, excess level of mana where you're way ahead of your opponent, and you have the flexibility to start playing bigger minions and your relevant minions like Mind Control Deck and Big Game Hunter. And Zombie Chow is something that really pisses me off all the time. because I'm so used to playing all these aggro decks, and it's like, all right, I don't have turn 1, he does, and Zombie Chow. Well, concede.
Well, yeah, Zombie Chow's that's another sort of meta call, because you don't. There's sometimes I think Zombie Chows are really good for when you're playing against a lot of Face Hunter and stuff. But haven't been running them.
Zombie Chow seems really weird, I would assume, to a lot of newer players, because they see Zombie Chow and they're like, that's a really cool card, like a 1-drop 2/3 is broken, but giving your opponent like 5 health, that's counterintuitive.
Right.
But you usually just want to be trading. Like that's what he's for. He's for trading. And with the prevalence with Face Hunter right now, and I would say even Mech Mage, Zombie Chow is phenomenal for trading with minions.
Yeah,
you can easily get 2 creatures with Zombie Chow, sometimes even 3 or 4.
Well, the idea with Zombie Chow is, you restore 5 health to your opponent, but the opponent's already at 30 health, so it doesn't matter. And you get 2 cards for 1. That's the...
and even if you're doing damage with Zombie Chow, basically the idea behind Zombie Chow is it's an investment. The investment is you're disrupting their early game so you can beat them in the late game.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have the ramps. Reason why it's called Ramp Druid, because we have Innervate and Wild Growth. Like you said, Matt, it's got Nourish sometimes too, and then I've been playing the Face Hunter a lot to counter Pally, and then I also played what I'm really liking now is the Mech Shaman. And every time I see when I do play up against Ramp Druid, they either like coin Innervate some like a 4-drop or coin. Yeah, that's 4 math. A 4-drop turn 1, and they either do that or they coin and Innervate out their removal, or they Wild Growth, and then next turn they use a coin at Swipe or Wrath or all my creatures and stuff like that. And their early game is pretty much devoted to removal, it seems, which is really nice because they have pretty versatile cards being Druid, like Keeper of the Grove and Druid of the Claw, which is really nice. And I haven't had the chance to play any other decks other than aggro-based decks, i.e. budget, obviously. But I like the versatility of it, of how it can be very, like, if you have to, you can coin out really, really awesome cards in the beginning, like, or coin Innervate, like a Druid of the Claw turn 2, or send in Shield Master, Keeper of the Grove, creatures of that sort. Innervating out a shade of Naxxramas, I would imagine, is just one of the greatest things you can possibly do.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, it's
Yeah.
it's dirty.
Feels so good.
It is. It is.
Yeah, but
filthy.
like you're saying, Tom, it's good at the like an innervate's good at the beginning of the game, but it's also good, turn 6. You can play a removal like Swipe or Wrath and play a big beefy minion. So you take tempo away from your opponent, and then you gain tempo by playing something on the board. It's just I was listening, watching a streamer, and he said, innervate, aka the best card in the game.
It's pretty nuts, man.
It can.
I don't think it's even a contest.
Yeah.
I think if you could run 3 cards, that would definitely be a 3 card, the third card in there. Would you not run that as a 3 of?
I can see, I definitely see what you're saying. It's like three. Is this still in a 30-card deck? So,
but dude,
yeah,
10% of your cards innovate.
If I get coin and 3 innervates in hand, I can play Ancient of Lore turn 1.
Yeah,
or,
that is pretty cool.
That's the dream, right?
Actually, hold on. 3, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. You can play Sneed or Kel'Thuzad. I can math. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the best thing is when you've got 2 innervates, the coin, and an Ancient of Lore in your hand.
Jesus.
Turn 2, you've got an Ancient of Lore, and you draw 2 cards. I mean, that's just concede.
No, man.
Just concede.
The real troll, freaking innovate mechanic is when you quote unquote double combo, where it's like force of nature, savage roar, coin, innovate, savage roar again.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
14. Doing 22.
Basically an OTK deck right there.
It's like, well, you're gone.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because it's exactly the amount of mana. It's exactly 12 mana.
Right.
It's great.
Something that screwed me over really bad. When you are playing up against a Ramp Druid, for those of you who have to, which probably all of you will, if they have an Ancient of War on board, and they've decided to give it +5 health and taunt, which they probably will almost always do, if you kill that Ancient of War, it doesn't come back with +5 health and taunt. It's just a 5/5.
Oh, you mean
with KT?
With KT. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. The battle cry doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, battle cry.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't say battle cry on the card.
It doesn't, which is very interesting.
That's why I got confused when it without taunt. I could have won this one game that I played up against a guy. He had KT on board for turns on end, and I couldn't deal with it. I could have ended this guy, and I didn't because I didn't know that. And I felt like an idiot. So.
I'm looking at that. You are right. There's no indication for the choose one that it is a battle cry.
It is a battle cry because even if it gets played off of something like was it a Death Guard? What's the 3 mana taunt?
Death Lord.
Yeah, Death Lord. It just plays and it's a 5/5.
It's a really badass name for such a kind of weird minion.
Yeah.
Death is not the end. Whatever he says.
So
I love him. He's so weird and it just poops. It is the main card that you hate to play against because it's like, oh, you're playing fatigue.
Well, the thing in with Deathlord and a lot of these cards that came out after the base set was they're gonna be aggro killers. This is the end of Zoo. This is the end of Face Hunter, and it just doesn't happen. Deathlord was the first one because it just seemed so obvious that a 2/8 was for such a low cost was just gonna wreck Zoo, but then it was just it wasn't that good. And the same thing with Explosive Sheep in GVG. Everyone's like, oh, this is Zoo is finished.
I ran the Explosive Sheep in. If you're playing nothing but Zoo and Face Hunter, one of those in a Whirlwind is amazing. But that is totally a meta call. Now that there's so many decks, I was running one for a while, but not anymore. I took them out. But we'll see. That's what I've enjoyed about all these multiple decks being in the meta. Is it changes? You don't have to be so specific.
So what's filling up your top end of Ramp Druid? Is it you're saying Rag?
Yeah, I've got a Rag.
KG.
Obviously, if you're playing Ramp, you're playing Ancient of Lore, Ancient of War. I've got 2 of each, and then I've got a Sylvanas and a Black Knight. And I would consider I do run one Faceless Manipulator, two Sledge Belchers and two Sunwalkers, and I think the Sunwalkers are kind of those are change out. Maybe that's where my combo is.
So the thing with are you also running Sludge Belcher?
Yeah, I'm running two of those. Yeah.
So you have two Druids of Claw, two Sledge Belcher, and two for Sunwalker.
Yes. Yeah. So I've got a lot of taunts.
Jesus fuck,
Yeah.
and then two Ancients of War.
Yeah, lots and lots of taunt.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
It's.
I don't have any wars. I've got one. I've got two Druids of the Claw, and one Sludge Belcher. There have been times when I felt like, oh fuck, maybe I should have one more taunt or something like that. And I definitely feel that. I've also got the legendaries. I've got Sylvanas, Black Knight, Doctor Boom, and then I've got at the top end of my spectrum is Cenarius.
Okay, I see. I see a
good.
lot of people running that. This deck doesn't run it, and I think it's because, well, I think it's more playing around mind control tech, and this deck doesn't really have a lot of minions on the board all the time, so the +2/+2 isn't really that great either. So I think in my circumstance, it's probably not the best card to put, but I know, especially if you're playing the combo ramp, it's probably a better choice.
One of the things they was speculated to not put in instead of Scenarios is Foe Reaper.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
I lost a game today because a Foe Reaper popped out of this guy's shredder, and I just couldn't.
Yeah,
I couldn't do anything. It just kept killing everything. I think it would be. It's like if you ever needed to nerf that card, something like the other minions it hits, it takes damage from that, like or something.
yeah.
So like you hit 3/3, so it would take 6 damage. Obviously, that would sort of, I guess, kill it a bit.
Right.
But yeah, no, it feels unfair when I'm being beaten on by a Foe Reaper.
So the I would assume it's not hard to figure out like what an opening hand would, like a preferable opening hand would be with the Ramp Druid. Like you want your Wild Growths, you want your Zombie Chows to deal with the aggro. If you're playing up against a Warlock, you're thinking it's more likely going to be the Demon Control or Handlock type deck. You want to keep a big Game Hunter. If it's going to be aggro, you want to keep Mind Control tech. You want to get your Keeper of the Groves and Sentient Shield Master. I don't think you would want to like keep that in hand, but for the most part, I would assume like the early game stuff you want to think you want to keep Innervates. You want to keep probably Zombie Chows.
I wouldn't say Innervates.
Really?
I'd say if you get two, get rid of one, because otherwise. So what can happen?
You don't want to keep two. Sorry,
Yeah,
that's what I meant to say. Yeah, I apologize. Zombie Chow, I would think is pretty good. Like it seems pretty intuitive to me. Like Zombie Chow, Innervate, Wild Growth, Wrath.
If you run Zombie, I'm not running one, but if you do, you definitely want to keep those. I feel like it kind of depends on the deck you're playing against, but let's just say it's aggro. I generally keep at least one Wrath.
Yeah.
And then if I have an Innervate, I might save something like a Druid of the Claw or Sledge Belcher or something, because there's a chance for me to push it out real early, especially if I have the coin. If I'm going second and I get an Innervate, oh yeah, I'm keeping a 5-drop because turn 2 I can play that. That's wonderful. But against Control Warrior, I might want to actually keep something like a Keeper of the Grove or
Right.
I may not want the Innervate because it might not matter because I don't want to give my opponent something to play against.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's why you don't take 2 Innervates, because you're so invested by. If they remove it, you basically.
Oh yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't want to.
You're cooked.
Cards
You are cooked.
Just remove, but with 1 or 2 cards.
I feel like when you're playing against something like Control Warrior with a Ramp Druid, you want them to use. It's almost like you want to mill them by not actually milling them, but by saying, "Okay, I'm not playing anything either," or "I'm going to play something I'm not really worried about." So you have to waste, mana on it. And if you get to the point where crap, I'm going to have to discard a card if I don't play something, and they just start playing stuff, then you've got the advantage because they're not using their tools to their, their utmost.
Yeah. It seems like you, like as a Ramp Druid, you can do that just very, very easily, and it's probably a pretty good matchup against Control Warrior. In fact, it's probably a good matchup against a lot of things, and that's what it's saying on the tier list. But I don't. I would assume it has a bad like mid-range paladin matchup, and oil rogue. Other than that, I think everything else is you have a very, very decent even playing field against it.
That's why I think this deck
Those are
I'm
just the
playing.
things you got to look out for.
Yeah, I think that's why this deck is so taunt heavy, is because it's if I'm only playing 1 or 2 taunts at a time, okay, it's fine. If I'm playing against a paladin, go ahead and equality consecrate me.
Yeah.
I've got 4 more in my hand. You're not getting through.
I don't think there's really any deck specifically you need to be scared about when playing Ramp Druid, with the exception slightly of Oil Rogue and Midrange Paladin. I don't think Midrange Paladin is a huge hit to playing. It's just going to be really difficult to play against in comparison to Zoo and Mech Shaman and Mech Mage and stuff like that. So pretty intuitive for the most part. Pretty simple deck. Not cheap, but still really, really good. Definitely cheaper than the Priest Control deck we were looking at earlier, and maybe cheaper than Control Warrior. So
Anything's cheaper than Control Warrior.
I don't think it's I think it's fun to play, but comparing this to like a Face Hunter, I know a lot of people play those decks just because they're fun, just because you're immediately throwing things on the board. Whereas something like this, you might be playing 1 card at a time, and when you play it, it doesn't do anything. It just kind of sits there and taunts.
That's why I tend to opt for aggro decks, is because I don't know, it's something about the satisfaction of playing something in turn 1. It's like, yes,
right.
Especially when they don't.
I'm already ahead of you.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like I'm off to a good start. You're not going to play anything,
right?
I like aggro decks. I'm kind of bored of playing them. I'd like to play a combo deck or like a really, really heavy mid-range deck, and switching from playing a lot of Zulok and Face Hunter last season to playing mid-range Hunter was a nice switch, because it was still like an aggressive deck, and it was similar to Face Hunter, similar list, but you got to play bigger creatures, and the creatures that were big were resilient, like Savannah Highmane. It was really fun. Lotheb, also really good. And then I got Dr. Boom out of a pack and was really happy about that, and got to play that, and then I got shit on by Ramp Druid. Ramp Druid and Pallies.
Well, is there anything else about this deck that you guys want to say before we close it up, or?
Good deck. If you have the dust and want to make it, it's absolutely worth it. Don't think it's going to go anywhere but up.
It's never. I can't envision a circumstance where it's like bad. The beauty of Druid is you'll always have a chance to win the game, like a good chance. Obviously, in Hearthstone, you have a chance to win any game, but Druid in general is worth an investment because, it's just
there's
been
a
good
lot
for
of
so
different
long.
types of Druid too. I think Ramp is the best by far.
Ever since the Prophet Strife Crew figured out the legendary build back a year and a bit ago, it's been good, and it's just it's good. It's good. It's worth the dust. Do it if you need.
Yeah.
Do it if you're looking for something else to play. Do it if you want to win. I guess
it's an old deck and it's tried and true.
It's super. It's a super. I guess active and fair deck, mid range kind of thing. It's fun to play, I would assume. It's not one of those decks that when you play up against it, it's like, oh Jesus, I'm gonna lose. But it's gonna put up a hard fight almost always to anybody, and it's not cancerous. So
yeah,
there's just a lot of them. I've noticed there's a lot, and it's Magic Gaming says that it's 40-60 in the fight against mid-range Paladin. I don't know. I don't know how exactly accurate that is, but I would imagine Ram Druid can still put up a decent fight. So, but overall, intuitive deck. It seems I've played against it a lot and always have put up really good fights. Shits on aggro, definitely. If you're looking to build the deck that does that. So
yeah, it's all about that mulligan phase. Well, guys, thank you very much. And I'll see see the listeners in a second. Thank you for joining us again. You can find us on YouTube at Death Rattle Crew, on Twitter at Death Rattle Crew, and on our website